Put a ring on it, and this is a review of the episode, or I should say the interview that Christal XO did with Shorty Mack from Put a Ring on It. And we're going to talk about it because I was really interested in seeing this interview because I really wanted to hear from Shorty's own mouth what her real story was without the so-called editing that she had been complaining about. And I wanted to hear what she had to say. And I must say that I am impressed with Christal XO. I've watched a couple of her interviews. I watched when she did Sabrina. And let me tell you what Christal XO was really good at. She's good at listening to stories, even though a lot of times these people are saying things that are bullshit. Let me tell you, she's really good at listening, not judging them, and letting them talk. And that's a lot of what she let Shorty do on this interview. So let me tell you what I think of the interview. First of all, I'm not saying Christal XO was trying to throw a little shade, but at the end of the interview, she did a public service announcement and she told people, listen, if you are in a domestic violence type of relationship, don't wait until you are on a reality TV taping. You need to call the domestic abuse hotline. Thank you, Christal XO. This interview was like watching a horror movie. Let me tell you, there were a lot of stories that were hard to listen to, that were definitely stories of abuse. But you know, when you're watching a horror movie and then the person finally gets out of the horror house and they're running away from the horror house, and then they say, oh, I got to go back into the horror house because I forgot something, and you screaming at the movie screen saying, what are you turning back for? Keep running, keep running. And then the person goes back into the horror house and of course some bad things happen. Well, that is the story of Shorty Mack. I think the biggest bomb was that before this show even started taping, Shorty Mack wasn't even living with Kenny. Kenny had moved out and was gone. Shorty Mack had moved into a whole new building with security and everything. She had gotten free of the so-called monster. But when this show opportunity came up, guess what she did? She went back into the horror house and let Kenny move back in with her so she could tape this reality show. Yeah, folks, that's what she did. She cleared up the whole story of how she was lonely living in Georgia and Kenny was in Baton Rouge. And after only about 4 months of having a long distance relationship, she invited Kenny to move to Baton Rouge to live with her to split the bills because, like we know, she was only making $25,000 with the son and the bills were tight. And she wanted to split the bills with Kenny, and that's what got him out to Atlanta, Georgia, to split the bills with her. That's how this all started. Of all the things she says that she would do differently, pretty much the only thing she says she would do differently is that part. That next time she won't let a man move in with her. So of all this, that's the only part she thought she could do differently. She had a lot of blame and things people did wrong and what they could do differently. I mean to tell you, she of course had a bunch of things for Kenny that he could do differently. She told me and you as the fans watching how we could think differently. She said Dr. Nicole could have done things differently. Production could have done things differently. The police could have done things differently the time she reached out to them. She talked about Kenny's mother, family. They could have done something differently. Everybody could have done something differently, but she didn't have too many things that she should do differently, except the fact that she shouldn't let Kenny have moved in after 5 months. That was it. But everybody else, we got a whole list of things we could do differently. Shorty Mack even tells us a story that after only living with Kenny for 1 month, she knew it wasn't going to work. She knew it wasn't a good match. And she was saying she actually got Kenny out of her house. She tricked him. She told him she was going away for a weekend or something and he couldn't stay there. And voila, Kenny was out the house. So remember she kept saying she was trying to leave Kenny, but she couldn't? Guess what? She was able to get Kenny out the house and he was gone for 4 months. But then guess what happened? I guess she got short on money and Kenny was like, let me come back, let me come back. If you let me come back, I'll give you 2 months rent. And you know what Shorty Mack said? Okay, you could come back. Give me 2 months rent. And she took the money and she let him back into the house. But of course, things went bad again. So then she decided she wanted him out the house again. And she tried to go to the law and told him, hey, I want him out the house. But the law told her, oh, too bad. He's a tenant. You're going to have to evict him. And she was scared, like anyone would be. She would be scared to bring an eviction lawsuit against a guy who's already living in the house with you. So what does Shorty Mack do? Does she go live with her mom? Does she go live with a friend? You know what Shorty Mack does? Shorty Mack decides she's going to live out the lease. So instead of going to live with a friend for 30 days while the eviction takes process, Shorty Mack decides, okay, she'll just continue to live with Kenny, crazy Kenny, as she was saying, along with her son. This is what she decides. The abusive man, she decides to stay in the apartment with Kenny and the son because she doesn't want to go live with a friend or a mother for 30 days while the eviction process takes place. She said one time for a week, she did decide to go live with her friend, but then Kenny came around to the house over there and was stalking her and everything. Then she tells Christal XO, yeah, and he brought a weapon with him. And we were like, oh my goodness, Kenny brought a gun? But then she clears us and says, well, you know what really happened was he came over to the apartment and a neighbor saw him and a neighbor told him to get away from the house. And then the neighbor said, if you don't get away from the house, I have a weapon. That's what the neighbor said to Kenny. And Kenny said, basically, Kenny was like, don't be threatening me. I got a weapon too. So that's what Shorty means when she says Kenny brought a weapon to the house. That's a completely different story, Shorty, but that's okay if you want to be disingenuous. I understand. You try to make it pretend like Kenny was bringing a weapon to harm you. I just don't like this type of manipulating stories. I don't like when people do that. Just tell us the real story because the real story is good enough. The real story is Kenny was stalking you and you need to get away. You didn't even have to add all that extra embellishment on the story that ends up being false and misleading. That's the part I don't like about Shorty. She goes too far with her stories just so she can look better and everybody else can look worse. Just tell the story as it is. But anyway, Kenny gets out the house, so she actually gets him out the house. This is the second time he's out the house. Everything is doing well. She decides she doesn't want to have any more opportunities for Kenny just to be able to walk up to her house and knock on her door. So Shorty decides to move into a high-rise apartment. Sounds like a good move to me with security and everything. So now Kenny can't even get to the apartment. He can't do anything. Sounds wonderful. Sounds like a plan you should do. But then guess what happens? She gets a call from the show and says, oh, the show opportunity has come about. Well, wait a minute. Now the show opportunity is here, but she's already broken free of Kenny. She's got her own place, her own apartment, her own furniture. She's in a secure building. But what does she do? Does she keep it that way? No. She decides to invite Kenny back into the apartment so she can film this show. Go figure. So you're asking, well, why would she do that? That's the same thing I'm wondering. Why would you invite the abuser back into your apartment? Why? Just so you can film this show? She decides, oh, because now what she wants to do is she doesn't like the fact that everybody likes Kenny. She says, Kenny is charming. Everybody likes him. Nobody believes my story. They believe his story. So the reason I invited him back in and to be on this show was so that I could expose him. We thought it was to get away from him, but we find out she was already away from him. Well, she decides that she acts like she's some type of undercover cop. She's going to go back into a dangerous situation. So now that she can gain a lot of evidence to be able to show people why she needed to leave him. People, really? She said she wanted to be able to document it in real time. She said she figured if she triggered him on the show, and that's probably why she was talking to him the way she talked to him. She said if she could trigger him, she knew he couldn't keep it together, and the real Kenny would come out for everybody else to be able to see. So this was all a ruse to get a reaction out of Kenny to expose him on TV? Exactly. This is what this was about. But we thought it was to get away from him, but she was already away from Kenny. She invited Kenny back into that high-rise apartment because he wasn't even originally living there at all. Well, just like last time, soon as he moved in, guess what? It fell all apart again because after she went out on those dates with Hollywood and she came back in talking about she was going to go out on the second day with Hollywood, Kenny lost it. Kenny started screaming and yelling, and so she decided now she's afraid of Kenny again and she wants to kick Kenny out, and she kicks Kenny out and she tells production, oh, I don't want to film anymore. I want Kenny out the house. She tells her this story how Kenny's manipulative and that he was going going to use it over her to damage her brand. First of all, to be honest with you, I didn't even know who Shorty Mack was prior to this show, and I definitely didn't know who Kenny from Baton Rouge was. So she keeps talking about this brand and that she wanted to make sure that Kenny couldn't ruin her brand. So she went on, put a ring on it so she can gather evidence to save her brand. I don't know how staying with Kenny and coming on, put a ring was helping her brand. I think it damaged it even more because I didn't even know who Shorty Mack was and I didn't know who Kenny from Baton Rouge was. So not only did I think she hurt her brand by going on, put a ring on it. I think she exposes the stuff that we would have never known about unless it was for her coming on, put a ring on it. Well, after she tells Kenny, I want you to leave, and Kenny's all upset that she went out with Hollywood, and I think he starts to realize he's been taken. I guess he had given her some money to pay rent, so when the filming started and he was going to move in with her in the high rise, he gave her some rent money. So when she started kicking him out and telling him that he needed to leave, that's when he took her phone. He started going through her phone. He happened to see an old picture that was in her phone that she actually had a picture of her debit card, the front and the back. She said it was an old picture. He sent that picture to himself because what he was doing was he was upset that he had paid her rent in order to stay in that high-rise apartment while they filmed. And then after a short period of time, she kicked him out. And what he was doing was he was going to definitely try to do some type of little finagling to get that money back out of her account. Is that right? No, it's not right. But now we know why Kenny was going into her bank account or using her bank card was to get money back from rent he had paid that she felt he should get back from her now that she was kicking him out the apartment. In the end, this interview kind of just proved what I thought was the truth about Shorty, was that she didn't need to come on this show to get Kenny out of her life. She had already successfully gotten Kenny out of her life because he was not living in that high-rise apartment with her. And like she said, she had security. She decided to do this television show, I think, to get more notoriety, more fame. And she lured Kenny in to do the show with the promise that they would actually work on their relationship. That's how she got Kenny to say yes to the show, because it looks like they were already broken up. And Kenny said that she had begged him to be on the show, which I think is true. And she probably promised Kenny, hey, come on the show and maybe we could work things out. But the only reason she was bringing Kenny on the show was because she wanted to be on the show. She had already successfully ended the relationship. Now, do I believe Kenny did all those things? I call her every single day, send her emails. I absolutely do agree. I absolutely do believe that. But do I believe that coming on the show was an integral part of her getting away from Kenny? No, I do not believe that, and I have never believed that story. I do believe the part that she said that everybody likes Kenny and people probably don't like her as much, because what she said is Kenny is affectionate, he's warm, he's funny, everybody loves him, and that's the opposite of what people say about her. So I believe that Kenny, people, her friends, her family, and different people liked Kenny, and they probably thought she was the bigger problem. And what she decided to do was to bring Kenny on the show to be able to prove to everyone that she's not the bad person, that Kenny's the bad person. So did she need the show to get rid of Kenny? No. But what she did need the show to do was she wanted to repair her own reputation. She wanted the world to see that she's not the bad person, that Kenny's the bad person. So when Kenny says he feels tricked coming to the show, he absolutely was tricked. He was lured on the show with the belief that they were really going to be working on their relationship, and that is not the reason she brought him on the show. She brought him on the show to make a fool out of him, to expose everything was wrong with him, and to make herself look better. She did not need to bring Kenny on the show to escape him, because she was living in a high-rise apartment all by herself, and Kenny was not living there. She invited him back to the apartment. So there you have it. Make up your own determination. I know what I think, and I'm sticking to what I think about Shorty. And I'm just happy these two are no longer together. Talk to y'all later. Bye.